This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson. Yes, welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show for Sunday, February the 24th, 2013. And nice to talk to you. We were away for the President's Day holiday, which was very interesting for me, and I had a rather unexpected meditation on the whole topic of leaders and politics, which I'm happy to share with you today, among other things. It's become very clear that we are living in a time when our world is changing, but not just our world, our experience of it is changing rapidly. And things that we thought were unassailable truths are showing themselves not to be so. And this is happening on many levels. So I think it's a fascinating time to look at what's going on out here. And it's a great time to be doing a show like this show that I'm doing on spirituality and wellness. This is a show that I have really dedicated to. And when I first started the show, I often focused more on wellness activities, the sense of well-being, and our spiritual connections. But in the past year or so, I've really felt the need to focus on the way that we look at what's going on around us and how that affects our wellness, because it does. And how we need to start to really understand how we create these things. Although a complete understanding of that is probably not possible, since in a very real sense we are creating everything that we experience, but we're creating it on a level that we are not completely conscious of in our physical bodies and physical experience. So suffice it to be that we understand or have an awareness of this process that's going on. And that's what the show is about. It looks at contemporary issues, things coming across in the media and film and so forth and so on, the topics everybody's talking about. But it looks at them from a spiritual perspective. It looks at them from, how do we go into this? How do we take it in? And what is it telling us about ourselves? And what opportunities for growth is it giving us? That to me is the healthiest way to look at any of these things. So often, you turn on the news and your initial reaction to something that's being shown to you is horror. Particularly since many of the choices of news stories that are made tend towards the more egregious or the more titillating. And part of the whole idea of on the surface of it is that you attract more viewers or more listeners by giving them something that just grabs their attention, something that titillates them, and that's their process, and that's what they do, because that's how that business works. But what we can do is take that and turn it around so that it doesn't manipulate us, but however it does bring us into a state of awareness that helps us to grow. And so that's my mission in a lot of what I do on the show. Of course, I'm also going to be talking about wellness issues, and I always have new information and practices to talk about too. So You get it all here, and hoping that the show will grow and expand as time goes on, and perhaps we'll have at some point callers and guests and that sort of thing. But for now, it's just me. So let me tell you about the meditation experience I had, which was completely unplanned over the President's Day holiday. Um, I was actually not even planning to take that day off, but as it turned out, through a series of circumstances, I ended up quite happily having the day mostly to myself. And I came across a story, I think it was on the radio perhaps, regarding the whole efforts towards sequestration that you may have heard of in the news, where these drastic cuts to government services and so forth are pending, looming on the horizon, if you will. And I heard President Obama talking about it and being rebutted by the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. And as I was listening, and as I said, I did not do a conscious meditation of this at all. I did not bring this in to examine or anything. It was just a moment that I had. Perhaps I like to think I have been oversaturated with political news, and that led to me sort of rising to a new level of experiencing of it. But I saw both of these gentlemen as leaders, and it was particularly these gentlemen that came to mind. And I felt an incredible sense of compassion for both of them, and a sense of gratitude towards both of them for what they are trying to do in leading the country, and all of the challenges that entails. Now, that might not seem like an extraordinary thing, but for me it was, because I am, well, I'm perhaps as harsh and critical in my political judgments as anybody, at times. It's one of the spiritual challenges that I work through. And it's something I think a lot of people relate to. I mean, we are very polarized in a lot of our political ideas. And so we tend to react or side with one side or another on these issues, and we, gather our beliefs and make, statements, and even, if we're active, we may take action on these things. And I'm not saying that any of that is inherently wrong. However, what I experienced went beyond that. I was able to be free of my judgments and my political beliefs and my, concerns, and just experience these two gentlemen for who they were, what they were trying to do, and the incredible task they have in trying to be leaders in a world that is in such incredible flux, such incredible change, in a world where things are happening that nobody ever thought would ever happen. And this is on a political level, this is on a cosmic level, this is on a spiritual and religious level. Every level of our, what I will call our material existence, that which we're used to, is changing, including our very foundations of what we understand about the world in physics, completely changing. So this is a revolutionary time unlike any other. And here are these two gentlemen trying to, as best as they can, embody the different aspects of what is going on. And I was able to send a prayer of strength and gratitude and compassion. That was the one feeling that came most to me, compassion for both of them, without siding on one side or the other, without making one of them the hero and the other the villain. I got past that story and recognized a sense of oneness in what they were trying to accomplish from different sides of the spectrum, of course. But as I said, they are embodying principles that we are playing with, learning about. And they're doing a tremendous job of it. So I was able to have an appreciation of that. And it was completely unbidden. I didn't ask for it. I didn't say, I've got to sit down, take this in, and get to this level. It just came. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm hopeful that I'll have more experiences like that, because what that tells me when I start to have those kinds of experiences, that tells me that I am able to connect spiritually much easier without having to work at it, but having it become part of my nature more. For so many years, I have struggled with trying to realign myself with spirit, and finding over the years that it takes less and less work. In the beginning, it's very difficult to see things from a different perspective other than the usual Sturm and Drang of our society. And as I began to work on it and focus on it and employ these techniques, these spiritual techniques, I found it became easier and easier to experience things differently. And so this unbidden moment that I had tells me that what I'm doing for myself with this show is making some headway. And perhaps the same will be for you as well. All right, this leads me to some more of the topics that we're talking about, and it's still under this whole concept of how the world is changing. And perhaps one of the big stories that points to that is the stepping down of Pope Benedict. Completely unexpected turn of events that has led to a lot of speculation about what is going on in the church, a lot of chaos. The Pope has said originally his statement was that he just felt that he did not have the energy to take on all of the things that were going on in the church and around him and in the world, all of the changes that were going on. And that he was not in the best of health, and that he needed to make way for someone else who could handle the situation with more strength and energy than he felt that he could give to it. A very interesting statement. He apparently is in some sort of poor health, but whether it's anything more than just, the typical kinds of age-related things for someone, in their mid-80s, or if it's something more serious, it's hard to say. But just the other day now, and this is a week or so after he's stepped down, he is now talking about how this is a very dark time in the church. There are, according to him, power struggles within the church and corruption within the church. This sort of has led me to believe, that was my first reaction anyway when I first heard the news, was that, the church itself is going through such heartrending change, and there's so much corruption that is being discovered and outed, that the Pope is just overwhelmed and can't be Pope anymore. That's my feeling about it. There's a sadness to it, and I know that Catholics have expressed to me their disappointment with the Pope, because as far as they're concerned, a Pope is supposed to be Pope until he dies. There is precedent for a Pope, stepping down from his charge. Apparently, about 400 years ago, there was a Pope who did the same. But it's very clear that the Church, as it is now, will have to go through some very radical changes, and if it is to continue to exist, it will have to reinvent itself, because in a time of change, in a time when people are turning away from this church quite a bit. Now, there are others who are joining on to the church, and these are people in some of the emerging countries who haven't had the experience of Catholic teachings, and so it's all very new to them. But for many of the people who've been long-standing members, or have had Catholic teaching and training, Catholicism seems to be something they're having a hard time dealing with. Mostly, and I've said this before, I won't go into it too much now because just of time constraints, but I always talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. And religion's ultimate purpose, religion being derived from the Latin term religio, which means to relink. Religion is to assist us in reconnecting with spirit. That's what religion was meant to do. Religion was not meant to become a institution that is so bogged down by its own dogma that it cannot respond quickly and appropriately to the needs of people. That was never the purpose of religion. And so, quite often, as I've said, religion works against spirituality. And I believe that there is a growing understanding of our own spirituality that goes beyond any, not just the Catholic Church, but any church teachings. I believe, even people who don't consider themselves spiritual seekers or spiritual at all are starting to, I believe, understand this and come to a new perspective on things, just because it's out there now in popular media, in everything, these concepts of spirituality. And so I believe that's a lot of what's happening with the church, and of course lots of prayers going to Benedict right now, as they should. Now people are also talking about what's known as the papal prophecies, prophecies of the popes. And these prophecies were written by a church archbishop by the name of Saint Malachy in the 12th century. And they are prophecies of each pope, with a description of each pope that would rise to power, as it were. And apparently these predictions, these descriptions of the popes have been pretty accurate to a large degree. Some disagree with that, but many scholars are saying that it's more of an idea that they're trying to match the actual popes to the ones that are predicted rather than the other way around. But in any case, um, these descriptions do match 1 to 1 on all of the popes. And in looking at these descriptions, the currently retiring Pope, Benedict, corresponds to the second to last of the papal descriptions in these prophecies. And this description is Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive. And that is Benedict. So, according to these prophecies, the final pope will be the pope who takes his place. And that pope will bring about the end of the Holy Roman Church as it stands now. The prophecy says, and I quote, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills," which is a description of Rome, "will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end. So there's a bit of an apocalyptic tone to that. But according to these prophecies, the next pope, the one that takes Benedict's place, will be this Peter the Roman, who is to usher in the end of the Roman Church. So, another apocalyptic prediction. But again, as with apocalyptic predictions, it's perhaps not meaning the end of everything, but meaning the change of this church into something much different. And I think that's a wonderful thing to think about. To think about what the church could be and the things it could do for people and how it might change. So, let's move on now to meteors and such. Now, on my last show, I talked to you about an asteroid that they knew was coming very close to Earth but wouldn't hit Earth. However, at the same time, there was a meteor that wasn't expected that hit in Russia and caused tremendous damage, sending many people to the hospital. And this has really shaken up the scientific community, not in the sense that they think that there's going to be more disasters coming. However, seeing the damage that was done by this meteor has sort of gotten NASA to reinvigorate itself and try to create a planetary protection against these sorts of things. And while there are lots of protections in place, due to lack of funding, there have been gaps, if you will, in NASA's ability to not only sense these things as they come, but to find a way to stop an asteroid from hitting. So it's become a reality now, rather than just science fiction, that some sort of defense system needs to be implemented to protect the Earth from these flying pieces of rock that can really cause a lot of damage. So it'll be interesting to see, and since we're in a time when we're talking about things like sequestration and austerity, it's going to be really interesting to see how we respond to this new charge of ours. All right, so Now, keeping up with our theme today of the changing world, did you know that scientists have discovered particles that move faster than light? Now, as you know, scientists are very, very cautious, overly cautious sometimes. And so this research is still being picked over and discussed and looked at. But it seems to suggest, barring any errors, that either Einstein's theory is disproven or is needed to change, because no particles were thought to be able to travel faster than light. And now it seems that there are particles that exist, neutrinos that exist, that do it. And this opens up a new understanding of the universe from a physics perspective, along with the many other things that are changing in the world of physics. So we're going to talk more in depth about that. I think maybe next week we'll have a focus of the entire show on just these changes that are going on in the world of physics. Everything from the discovery of the Higgs boson to these faster than light particles, and what this means as far as our change, or the world of science's change in perspective. Basically, it is, to me, science catching up with what mystics of the ages have understood for quite some time, centuries. And it's always fascinating when science catches up with spirituality. That's an intersection that I'm always fascinated with. There's a duality between the two, but they are also more connected than I think a lot of people really understand. So we'll focus on that more, I think, next week. It'll be a great topic because there's a lot to talk about. So it deserves a little bit more time than I can give it right now. So let's move our attention now to the Oscars, because today is Oscar Day. The presentation for the Academy Awards will be this evening. And it's the end of the award season for films, which pretty much starts with the awards, the award shows for the international award shows, and then ends with the Academy Awards. So, in keeping with that, I would like to talk to you about a spiritual film, or a film that has a real, I think, spiritual quality to it. As you know, I created a film in 2009 called Spirituality in Film, A Shamanic Journey, which takes a look at spiritual aspects that come through in films. I've been involved in, I do a blog, which is Metaphysical Media, blogspot.com, on spiritual media. So I've been pretty active and vocal about talking about these kinds of films that generally tend to go either under the radar, unnoticed, or don't become big box office hits, because they are dealing with ideas, concepts that aren't readily absorbed by the mainstream, if you will. So this movie is a recent addition to this. It came out in 2011, and it's called Perfect Sense. Perfect Sense. It stars Ian McGregor and Eva Green. And the scenario is basically this. There's some sort of epidemic that no one seems to be able to find cause or an preventive cure for. But it begins to systematically rob humans of their sensory perceptions. It starts with a very strong emotional reaction, followed by the loss of one of the senses. The first one is the sense of smell. There's a deep sense of sadness, and then the sense of smell goes away. And the film is a meditation on how important those senses are and what happens to us when we lose them and how our connections continue even without them. It's fascinating, and I highly recommend it. You can get it out on DVD now. I saw it recently out on the cable circuits. I believe Showtime has been showing it, so if you get that at home, look for it there. Perfect Sense is the name of the movie. Have a wonderful week, and let's see you next Sunday.